Can I? I just want to defend the sound bites and attack cliches. It's just a sound bite. Of course, it's supposed to be when it's good, it's provocative, and the sound bite is supposed to help you think, help us be what university is about: thinking and question and not being afraid. Whereas cliches is exactly the opposite. When you start using a language only filled with cliches, it means that you are usually afraid, and it means that you are not thinking, you are too afraid of thinking. And more in Portuguese university, not in Greece, in Greece because there the university is closed, so no fear. The problem solved. It's a very modern European, postmodern European way of solve problem. Just close the university, close the country. But as the Germans will say in that joke from the publicity, let's think that country. What are you thinking about? So I see in my university, which because I'm from humanities, I see more and more people who are afraid and using these dumb cliches as, oh, my project, it has the old my project from FCT. I'm sorry, Miguel, but they spend years doing their projects. I actually don't do that because when I do books with my students, I can pay for the books because I'm rich, but don't tell it to other people. But because you spend too much time nowadays. I'm very annoyed because banks and the system and the crisis are forcing me to all the time thinking about money, and I studied not to think about money, not because I'm not realist, but because I expected banks and accountants to do that work for me. I pay them as I can pay someone to solve my TV problem or whatever. And now they are forcing me to spend more and more time of my precious time, because I'm about to die. I'm 52, and the clock is not stopping. They are taking my precious time. And teachers, university teachers, which was supposed to be the most free of professions, especially after tenure, they are afraid. Tenured professors, the other day, a couple of years ago, a colleague came to me and said, did you go to that meeting, faculty meeting? No, sorry, I was abroad doing some conference. And my colleague said, oh, what a pity. Because a colleague of ours, his clock actually went over, he died, Carlos Jesus, a wonderful anthropology teacher, he was shamelessly attacked in a very, very demeaning way in that faculty meeting, and there was no one to defend him. And I'm not fucking Don Quixote. Come on. There should be someone there to be brave and just say what you think. That's for me, it's very, very sad about university nowadays.
You have not been at university. You can learn that at university. It's shocking how so. It's what the Americans do when they invaded Iraq. Or our Portuguese man of war, Afonso de Albuquerque, done in Malacca. He just destroyed everything to make people completely afraid. It's what's happening now, not only in universities, but in our society. And you can read stigmas of that. That's part of the way things can be changed. Someone wrote that we are now seeing something similar to what happened in Chile in the early 70s, but it's not a coup d'etat, but it's a slowly change done by TV and the market forces, but the goal is exactly the same. So that's explained why no one talks on that meeting.
I think we have a few minutes left for some really, really quick fire. Someone wants to ask something? No? Is there any... You want to say something?
Yes. There is a point here. There is important. Miguel told this. The first part of this addresses the ethical issues of the scientific research. when market and all the corporation attitude that is bring in the university, it change the ethical attitude of the researchers and the teachers. And so we are not, we are afraid, and this is the name, afraid, because you are dealing with ethical dilemma, or has certain type of results in a certain time, with a certain schedule, or be out of the system. And this is a very crucial dilemma in our daily life. So I understand completely the problem, and I don't think this is just a problem at Imperial College. It's a problem that we face it here every day. So, and one of the reasons, because the Portuguese university tried to resist the Anglo-Saxon way, is that the imposition of the model of the Anglo-Saxon way is also the imposition of a certain type of ethical dilemma, ethical imposition, ethical morality. And most of the teachers of this classical Portuguese university try to stand for a certain kind of intellectual freedom and status of some kind. That it implies a social status. And this is attacked as a conservative position. Not that in this attack we don't understand that there is a very crucial point of defending certain status, the social status of the academic ambitions, the people that are doing research.
Just
Really quick, please.
yes, just to defend my point again against the influence of market on university. I think market will always need knowledge. So, to the society to develop, market will always need universities to solve new drugs, new devices. No? So, but also to have knowledge to make content for television, for cinema, for movies. So I don't have that so pessimistic perspective about the role of university. I think university has a role in building knowledge and teaching how to do things, but they are complementary.
So I'll open the table for 1 minute final comments, please.
I don't agree with you when you said that the Anglo-Saxon model is something uniform and it's now changing our way of seeing the university. And just quoting a professor from Oxford University about the language of education. He wrote recently, the language of education is being transformed into the language of management. That language is increasingly one of curriculum delivery rather than teaching, of inputs related to outputs rather than the struggle to understand, of making efficient gains rather than changing pedagogy to meet more challenging teaching tasks, of audits rather than professional judgment, of performance indicators rather than the standards internal to the activity, of economic relevance rather than human fulfillment, of clients and customers rather than apprentices to a formal life in the way of thinking. Just to finish, it is difficult to deliberate about the aims of education when the very language of morality has been subverted by the language of business management. So I think that's not an uniform, and there is forces against that type of language and that type of perspective. So it's just, you need the political power to choose your angle and your field.
Let's sum it up. Angus.
My last thought would be, I think the problem's more about quality than it is quantity, even quantities of money. Market failure and forces, I'm sure, have an effect, but the crisis of the University of Culture and History has been long running through the 20th century. I don't think it's explained by current economic crisis. It's a much bigger problem than that. While I do like your idea of the way you put it, of university being a sort of reverse purgatory on the, charting a path of the death of idealism until the moment when your clock runs out, which is of course true in a sense. That's what life is unfortunately a bit like. But we do struggle against that. And the bravery in pursuit of our ideals, whether we're Don Quixote or not, is never in relation to the number of our enemies or how strong they are. The combating that sort of fear comes from within and is based in conviction in the quality and strength of your ideas and what you stand for. And I think if universities find ways to reassert that and defend those ideas, then they may find, I'm not promising, but they may find that money becomes less of a problem.
Okay, many great writers, 20th century great writers, didn't get the Nobel. But it doesn't mean that a few good ones got the Nobel, and the Swedish Academy played an important role in setting a standard and sometimes in bringing to light some Colombian like Garcia Marquez or whatever, or Borges, George Borges, by not giving him the Nobel. Which means that it's not a problem for me if academia is mainly mediocre. That's about life. I always tell that to students for the last 30 years. I mean, come on. If you don't like a teacher, then enjoy the variety. That is why you have not only one teacher. That's why you choose it. It's like a cafeteria in a very good posh university in the United States. So it's that variety that will eventually give you something. And I always I feel always very sorry for people who say there are a lot of stupid people in the university. I mean, you are the stupid one if you expected that there will be a bubble filled with geniuses. And it's true, many great people didn't go to academia. But let me say, George, that it is a very nice job. Until now, we had very few hours. And it gave us time. It gave me time to think, to write. I had a wonderful time for the last 25 years, and I wrote 30 books. I'm not going to say fucking again. Sorry. The university should acknowledge that, and that's the sort of freedom that university gives to people who are lucky enough to get a job in university is worthwhile, and it is better to be in a warm place than to be in a cold place. It's not. I don't believe that being poor turns you into a genius, which doesn't mean that Karl Marx was a great thinker, but not because he's poor. He was poor, and neither was Nietzsche. They were great thinkers because, of course, they were German.
Well, maybe I would like to go back to the first idea of what the university is for, and we have been dwelling around a certain opposition between university and society, and I would like to think that there is a permanent symbiosis between these two entities if we are thinking about them, at least giving them different names, and thinking, and I would like to think that a person capable of thinking, a person capable of autonomous and free thinking, which can be fostered by a university, is a person that is going to help society solve problems. So this is something that I think is consensual, or I would like to think so.
Some of them do, however, create a lot of problems for society. Karl Marx, Nietzsche, highly educated men, and that just saying.
In that too, I think they are urging us to go back and try to solve them too. So other great thinkers introduced strong problems. We had the atom bomb, which was not thought for as a dangerous device, but it created a problem, and from that, of course, apart from all the negative consequences, there were what I think positive consequences, namely riskful thinking, thinking against that, thinking about possibilities of changing the course of things in the direction of a positive outcome. I would always say that thinking more and amplifying thinking and amplifying the freedom to think is a good thing. And finally, just the last idea, that this is a good in itself for society because it is a good in itself for individuals. And then I remember the title that Diderot gave to one of his most important books, Jacques et son maître. And this reminds me that Jacques is the student, but Jacques is the one that has a name and a personality. So if you learn, if you are allowed, and if you practice the thinking that learning allows you and fosters you to, you become a personality. You gain the right to have a name in this sense. So that was it.
Okay, I'm going back to one of the thoughts that I had on the presentation, is that universities do need to change, and I think that what we have heard here all this for an hour or so, universities really think they really should change, and they really should adapt to this whole new world. And they can do this by having these discussions or others and battles of ideas, and also by hearing their stakeholders, the expectations from students, from parents, from the communities, from corporations, and choose their new methods, their new models of teaching and learning. And I have to say, as a technology believer, that technology will have a say in that part.
I'll just say that I'm on the optimistic side, and I think that we're living very interesting times in university and elsewhere. I think if we were extraterrestrials with special powers of integration and we were looking from the outside, the view would be completely different from the one that we have on the inside, and that we would see a changing world that is increasingly providing new opportunities, new technologies, better quality of life, and exciting opportunities for human development. And I think that's what we would see from up there. While we're living here in the midst of change, there is, of course, a lot of byproducts of that process. But overall, I think that we're living exciting times.
Can you please thank the panel? I should just say in about 15 or 20 minutes there will be a second debate. The book is dead, won't leave the ebook. You're all welcome to come and see what will be talked about. Thank you very much.
That's partly what we talk about. But there's no good one time. I can see you have work done and you're already up and you go very aggressive. You go very short.